I remember the first time I truly felt invisible in my own family. It was like standing in the middle of a crowded room while everyone around me celebrated, their laughter ringing in my ears and yet somehow never reaching me. My name is Mia Bennett, and I am 22 years old, living in Haverford, Pennsylvania. As the oldest sister, I always thought the bond between us was unbreakable, but standing here in my childhood home, I realized I felt more like a ghost than a daughter. In this cozy house that once enveloped me with warmth, I could see my three younger siblings weaving in and out of laughter and stories that once bound us like tight-knit fabric. Alyssa, at 20 years old, floated through the rooms with an ease I envied, her blonde hair dancing around her shoulders as she spoke animatedly to Jake. He was just 15, but they shared a secret language I could not decode, a bond built on late-night conversations and whispered dreams. And little Lily, at only 8 years old, was the light of our family, her giggles puncturing the air, a melody so pure that it turned my heart heavy. I used to be part of that world, but ever since I moved abroad for college, each return felt more like an invasion than a homecoming. With every visit, anxiety knotted my stomach tighter. I watched my siblings thrive without me, sharing experiences that faded before my eyes like wisps of smoke. At the dinner table, I would sit amidst them, straining to be part of the conversation, but it felt as if I was talking to a wall. No matter how many comments I made or how many questions I asked, my words slipped away unnoticed. I was a shadow lurking behind bright lights while they basked in their shared joys. I remember the sinking feeling in my heart when I caught sight of them exchanging smiles at inside jokes that mixed joy and mockery as I sat there, a mere spectator in my own family. One evening, I gathered the courage to voice my feelings to our parents, hoping for a bridge over the chasm that had grown between us. It feels like I am not really here anymore, I admitted, my voice trembling, like I am just invisible. My mother glanced between my father and me, her brow furrowed in concern. "Oh, Mia, you know that is not true," she said, her words laced with kindness but devoid of true understanding. "You are always welcome, we love having you here." But love felt insufficient. Each dismissal felt like a stone dropped into my heart, creating ripples of hurt. I needed acknowledgement, a validation that my absence had indeed created a void, yet I kept being met with sympathy that barely registered. My siblings had woven a tapestry of connectivity that overshadowed mine completely. Sometimes I blamed myself for the distance. I had not always been the best sister. I made mistakes while navigating my own life in my newfound independence, but I had apologized, hoping to mend the breaks, only for reassurances that my actions had not bothered them to deepen the knife twisting inside me. Acceptance turned into resentment as I understood that my love had been met with indifference. That evening, cold and crisp, the kind of winter night where the air bites at your cheeks, was particularly brutal. We gathered around the fireplace, the crackling fire casting flickering shadows around the room, and my siblings melted into a world where I felt no warmth. As I watched stories float among my siblings, heartache settled in my chest like a stone, heavy and unforgiving. Their laughter echoed in the silence, anchored by my own tears, stinging the corners of my eyes, pushing against the wall I had built to keep my emotions at bay. "What are you thinking about?" Alyssa asked at one moment, her brow arched in curiosity. The warmth in her tone felt like a soft glove trying to wrap around a jagged shard of glass. "Oh, nothing," I replied, forcing a smile that felt more like a mask than an expression. "Just enjoying the moment." Lily's eyes sparkled with joy as she jumped up, dancing across the living room floor, her small feet tapping in rhythm with her heart. "Mia, can you play dolls with me after?" She chirped, her innocent request pulling me in and threatening to shatter my carefully maintained composure. Maybe later, Lily, Come on, please," Jake chimed in, rushing to his little sister's side. "You can't ignore her, she has been waiting all week for you to come home." His voice, usually so cheerful, fell flat against my skin like a dull thud. It twisted my insides to feel so wanted and yet so misunderstood. I said maybe. I whispered, struggling to sound genuine as the truth clawed at my throat. What I should have told them was how I craved to be part of that laughter, to feel included, but instead I felt like a guest watching a family reunion unfold, wishing for an invitation into the inner circle. I could not hold on anymore. It felt as if the walls of my heart were collapsing in on themselves. I turned away, feigning interest in the flames flickering before me, muscles tight from years of resisting the tides of sadness swirling inside. I felt the warmth, but it was too distant and I was too far out of reach. No longer could I remain in the shadows, feeling their warmth without being part of it. In that moment, I made a decision. If they could not see me, if they remained blind to the vibrant thread I used to weave into our family fabric, then I would create a plan, a carefully crafted scheme to unveil my existence once more. I would make them feel my absence, let them experience the void I had been confronting all along, and then I would draw them back into the light. I imagined it, how I would lay out the narrative, delicately constructed, much like a spider spinning silk, a web designed to catch their attention. My mind raced with various ideas, each more elaborate than the last. I could exploit their vulnerabilities, unveil the shadows of their unwritten stories. My siblings were so caught up in their own bonds that I needed only to nudge them back toward me, rekindle that flicker of what we once had. "Let me show you why you need me," I thought fiercely. I envisioned conversations layered with hints of nostalgia and reminders of all the moments I had shared with each of them. The night spent laughing over nothing, the secrets whispered into the quiet hours of early morning, each memory a thread begging to be rewoven. My inner voice whispered, reminding me not to forget the aspects of them I cherished the most. I had to tread carefully, manipulate gently, pulling them back into my orbit. That night, as I lay in the old bed I had grown up in, I remembered how it used to feel, filled with laughter, dreams whispered under covers, and mischievous confessions that lit up our trailer of childhood. I recalled the day I taught Jake to ride a bike, how Alyssa helped me prepare for my first date, the way Lily would giggle when I pretended to be a monster during our hide-and-seek sessions. I thought of their smiles and how much they lit up my world. What if I could recreate that feeling? What if I could spark their memories, not just make them notice me, but make them want me back? The thought consumed me, fed my determination. I stared at the ceiling above, filled with the stars of my dreams, shining with the hope of my plan. I needed a starting point, something potent enough to ripple through their bonds and reach me. I would need to be both the artist and the protagonist of this unfolding story. They would hear me, they would see me again. With a pounding heart and a head swirling with possibilities, I closed my eyes, envisioning the script of my revenge unfolding layer after layer of plot points that would draw them back into the embrace of sisterhood. I could almost hear their voices rising, feel the tender tugs of love as we found our way back to each other once more. I was determined to become a part of their world again, even if it meant playing the role of the villain first. My plan was kicking into motion, the silent surge of revenge lighting the way ahead, a flicker of hope piercing the shadows of my heart. I stood in my old bedroom, enclosed by walls lined with fading photographs and long-forgotten trophies. The air was thick with dust, each speck catching the light as if trying to reclaim the memories. My fingers grazed the worn-out edges of the childhood books stacked in forgotten corners, each one a testament to lost time, lost love. This was my sanctuary, a capsule of the past, but today it prepared to be the launchpad of my escape. A wave of determination washed over me as I picked up my phone, feeling its cool surface against my palm. I had a plan and I was ready to spin my web, drawing them in one thread at a time. With a swift motion, I unlocked the screen and opened a conversation with Alyssa. "Hey Alyssa, you would not believe the adventure I had yesterday," I typed, my heart racing as I conjured images in my mind. I picture myself standing on the bustling streets of Paris, the Eiffel Tower silhouetted against the sunset. I was exploring Montmartre and I stumbled upon this tiny cafe. The coffee was the best I have ever had. I ended up talking to a group of artists and they invited me to a gallery opening. I hit send, my stomach fluttering in a mix of excitement and nerves. What if she didn't care? But when her response chimed in, the urgency in her words gave me hope. "Mia. That sounds amazing. I can't believe you're living such an exciting life. Tell me all about it." Savoring her enthusiasm, I felt a rush of power. This is what I wanted, to be the center of their universe once more, I replied, expanding on my fabricated tale. "I met a painter named Jean and he showed me around his studio. The way he captures the essence of the city is incredible. I wish you could see it." I envisioned Alyssa's eyes widening, her imagination painting my stories in brilliant colors. I envisioned her sharing my adventures with Jake and little Lily, my narratives drifting like fireworks over their heads, illuminating the dark patches where I once lingered like a ghost. I switched over to Jake's chat, my fingers dancing over the screen. "Jake, you won't believe how beautiful it is here. Yesterday I wandered along the Seine and there was this street performer playing the violin. It felt like a movie scene. I had to pinch myself." His reply came quickly, filled with urgency. "Wow, Mia. I can't believe you're living that life. Are you okay? We miss you here." I could almost hear him pacing back and forth, filled with worry. Little did he know my absence wasn't what they should be concerned about. "I miss you guys too, but it's so inspiring here. It feels like I am finally living." This was everything I wanted. I reveled in their concern. The attention they were beginning to shower on me felt intoxicating, like sweet nectar drawing the bees. I savored each word, rewinding and replaying the joy I felt as the texts poured in. Then there was sweet little Lily, her voice notes the purest form of innocence. I clicked on her latest message, the warmth of her voice wrapping around me like a familiar blanket. "Mia, why haven't you come home yet? I made you a drawing. It looks like the moon and we are having a picnic under it." My heart twisted painfully, but I pushed down the emotion, reminding myself of the bigger picture. It was all part of the plan. I needed them to realize my absence, to dig deep into their own guilt. "Your drawing sounds beautiful, Lily. I promise I will come back soon. We will have the best picnic ever." I recorded my response, replaying it to ensure it conveyed all the love I felt but mixed with a hint of longing that would amplify her sense of loss. I leaned back against the bed, surrounded by the tangible ghosts of my past while I crafted new ones in the present. The moments of laughter and connection, however hollow, were beginning to weave together a tapestry that felt almost real. I could feel their concerns circling around me, enveloping me like a warm embrace. As the days turned into weeks, my phone became the instrument of my orchestration. Every exchange brought them closer, not to me, but to their growing regret. They were talking to each other more frequently, my name slipping into their conversations like a whisper of wind, bringing in waves of guilt and longing. I could practically hear them gathering in hushed tones, each worried face a reflection of their awareness of how neglectful they had been. The thrill rippled through me each time I caught snippets of their conversations. My plan was working, the ache of loneliness echoed, now transformed into a craving for my presence instead. It was exhilarating watching them grasp at the strands of my story, the longing evident in their messages filled with question marks and exclamation points. Their worry only fueled my need for recognition. One afternoon, I found myself crossing paths with Alyssa's text that read, "Mia, you know, Jake and I have been talking a lot about you. It's like we really took you for granted. I didn't even realize how much I miss you." Her words struck deep, a dark satisfaction bursting within me. I felt like a predator, poised and ready to pounce. I replied, I understand that life is busy, Alyssa. Sometimes it feels like I vanished from your thoughts, but every time I hear from you, it heals a little piece of my heart. I could almost picture her brow furrowing as she pondered my words, her guilt settling like ash on her conscience, but this was just the beginning. Jake jumped in next, his words racing across the screen. Mia, I am sorry things went this way. We didn't mean to ignore you, it's just been tough, and we didn't keep in touch like we should have. Can we set up a video call soon? I want to hear about everything. The excitement bubbled within me, turning my insides into a wild symphony of anticipation. I smiled to myself, crafting my reply delicately. I would love that, just promise you guys are ready to hear all about my wild adventures. It's a story for the ages. I waited, almost breathless, for their reactions. I imagined them speaking excitedly, their voices colliding in a messy blend of enthusiasm and regret. Of course, we cannot wait, Alyssa replied. Definitely, I want to see your smiling face, Jake added, this time immersing the conversation with a vulnerability that both thrilled and soothed me. As we settled on a date for the video call, I glanced around my old bedroom, memories flitting through the air like dust. The room felt charged with energy, each corner alive with shadows of the past. The anticipation of revealing myself again to them, no longer the ghost they had forgotten but the sister they needed, filled the air around me. The day of the call arrived, and my heart raced with the promise of connection, but more so with the triumph that pulsed through my veins. In a few short hours, I was prepared to stand in front of them, no longer invisible, no longer overlooked. As the screen lit up, I would finally put a face to the worries I had fed, intertwining their remorse with a dazzling display of joy and tears. I would be more than just a memory to them, I would break through the walls they built and remind them of just what they lost. My existence, long neglected, would no longer settle like dust in an abandoned room. Instead, it would shine brightly in an audience of three, where love and regret mingled in a bittersweet symphony that I had orchestrated. I felt like a puppeteer pulling at their strings, and as the time drew near, I relished the power of my revenge. I would reclaim my place, forever transforming the way they saw me, weaving bonds thick with remorse, laughter, and the promise of connection. Reborn days turned into weeks, and I found myself consumed by my plan. It had started as something innocent, a flicker of hope dancing on the embers of pain, but as time progressed, the flames had grown, devouring my thoughts and clouding my judgment. I could feel the grip of my scheme tightening around me, and every notification on my phone drew me in like a moth to a flame. Each message from my siblings began to sound urgent, brimming with a heartfelt desperation that both warmed and transported me deeper into the recesses of my emotions. They poured out feelings, raw and unfiltered, like an unbidden tide of guilt and remorse. The words rolled over me, and I wallowed in their sorrow, savoring it, gnawing on the words and emotions like I was nurturing their desire to embrace me back into their lives. But what had started out as a sweet revenge began to curdle in my gut, turning into something much darker. Had I manipulated them, drawing them into my web of deceit for my own selfish reasons? I began to feel like a puppet master, tugging at the strings of our relationships, and it unsettled me. The moments I used to relish, filled with nostalgia, became sour as I reflected on what I had done. My initial aim had been to restore my place in the family, but now, facing the mirror of my own consciousness, I questioned whether I had become a simple shadow lurking in the corners of our collective history. As the weight of my own actions settled like a stone in my chest, anxiety began to gnaw at my composure. Dread crept into my mind like an unwelcome guest, leaving me unsure how much longer I could maintain this facade. I felt like a dam about to burst, and the pressure built within me until I reached a breaking point. I could no longer hide behind crafted stories and lies. I had to confront them, necessary truths boiling beneath the surface. I needed to call for a family meeting, a confrontation where honesty could shine through my tangled web of manipulation. But could I muster the courage to face my siblings with the truth of what I had done? The moment I dialed the family group chat, each ping of my message echoed in my heart. Can we meet? I want to talk. I hit send and released a shaky breath, my heart thumping loudly in my chest. The responses rolled in almost immediately, each of them eager, filled with confusion but edged with concern. I could sense their feelings shift from surprise to trepidation, and the anticipation in my gut mirrored theirs. It felt terrifying to open that door, to reveal both my soul and the chaos I had sown. The day arrived, and the air inside the living room charged with an electricity only family conflicts could create. Evidence of our childhood surrounded us. Pictures adorned the walls, the old faded couch where we had watched movies together, the worn dining table where we shared countless meals. This setting was supposed to be comfort, yet it felt like a battleground as my siblings entered one by one, their expressions a mixture of excitement and worry. I stood at the center like a deer caught in headlights. Their eyes swept over me, wide and expectant. I took a deep breath, the familiar scent of home swirling around me like a warm embrace, yet it felt heavy with an impending storm. My heart pounded as I realized I was slipping into uncharted territory where honesty might reign over half-truths. I know you all have been worried about me, I began, my voice trembling slightly as I looked at each of their faces. And honestly, that means so much to me, but I have to say it has broken me to feel invisible in our family. As the words tumbled from my mouth, I could see the confusion etching across their features. Alyssa's brow furrowed deeply, her lips slightly parted as if searching for the right words. Jake seemed caught somewhere between anger and understanding, his throat working to swallow what I was saying, and Lily, with those innocent wide eyes, blinked at me as if she were trying to decipher a complicated riddle. I took another breath to calm myself, feeling the heat rise within me, and continued pouring out my emotions like a dam bursting open. I felt like I was fading away and no one saw it happening. I created those stories, my voice quivered as I pressed on, and while I hoped it would bring us closer in truth, I felt so isolated and envious of the bond you all share. I love you, but I did this because I felt disconnected. I wanted you to understand just how much I longed to be part of this family again. The tension hung in the air, thick and palpable as my words settled over them. I captivated their attention completely, and it felt both liberating and suffocating all at once. Slowly, the faces in front of me shifted from confusion to realization. I could see it dawning on them, the gravity of what I had confessed, the confessions of fabrications and fantasies that I had clung to in my solitude. With trembling hands, Alyssa reached out for mine, her voice cracking as she began to speak. Mia, we didn't realize how much we took you for granted. I was so wrapped up in my life with Jake that I completely missed how you felt. I am so sorry. Her vulnerability pierced my heart more than I expected, and for a moment the walls of my heart felt like they were cracking open. Jake followed suit, his voice thick with emotion as he added, "We never meant to exclude you. I wish I would have seen it sooner." The sincerity in his tone caused a wrenching sensation in my chest, like a tightness that slowly unraveled the ropes tying me to my bitterness. Even little Lily, who stood quietly observing, moved closer, her small hands reaching forward. "I missed you, Mia," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. The innocence in her eyes, the trust and love shimmering there, shattered any remnants of my anger. She wrapped her tiny arms around my waist, pulling me down to her level, and in that moment I sensed a deep connection forming. I did not expect to react this way. Their genuine remorse filled the spaces that had once felt so empty, and as the walls of my heart began to crumble, I felt myself softening. Their honesty was infectious. It washed over me like a tidal wave, cresting high and crashing down, bringing with it the work of years that I had buried deep within me. The pain I had carried alone transformed into something recognizable: acceptance. I could finally feel that my suffering had turned into a sweet release. It was as if I had been holding onto the weight of stones, and one by one they began to lift. As the embrace of my siblings tightened around me, I felt the warmth of shared love enveloping me, anchoring me to a place I thought I had lost for good. It was overwhelming, a rush of emotion that poured out of my heart like a waterfall cascading over rocky cliffs. My voice shook as I whispered, "I never wanted this. I just wanted to feel like I belonged." Lissa's gaze softened further, and she stroked my arms gently, grounding me in that moment of vulnerability. "You will always belong, Mia. We just have to be better, all of us." A promise ringed in her resolve, one that echoed deeply in my chest, pulling me closer to the realization that with their love and commitment, healing could begin. "I think we can all do better," Jake added, his voice stronger now, encouraged by Alyssa's reassurances. "We have to check in with each other more, really see how we are doing. You are our sister, and we have been so caught up in our own lives that we didn't notice you slipping through the cracks." His words resonated with me, and I nodded, feeling tears welling in my eyes. "We can start today," I offered, my heart racing with each word I spoke. "Let's make a commitment to talk every week, set aside time for each other." I caught a glimpse of hope sparking in their eyes, mirroring the feeling awakening in me. Lily, still clinging to me, piped up cheerily, "And movie nights? We can have movie nights like we used to." Her innocence drew laughter from the others as they exchanged glances, the kind that spoke of collective memories and the possibility of creating new ones. "Absolutely," Alyssa promised, a smile breaking through the earlier tension. "How about we start this weekend? I could bring over snacks and we can watch all your favorite movies." She beamed at me, and my heart leaped at the idea, at the simple joy of reclaiming the feeling of home. "Let's do it," Jake agreed, stepping forward with a newfound energy. "No more missing out. We should all be involved, face the tough stuff together. I love you all, and I do not want to pretend anymore." The weight of his sincerity tumbled over me as I realized how fragile yet resilient our relationships truly were. Surrounded by my siblings, wrapped in their warmth, vulnerability, and unfiltered love, I felt the pieces of my heart glue back together. The shadows of revenge dissipated like fog under the sun, and for the first time in a long while I was simply Mia. The facade had fallen, and in its place connections grew stronger, intertwined with honesty. The pressure that had nearly crushed me was released, and as I looked at the faces of my siblings, I knew we were ready to rebuild. Together in the ensuing days following our confrontation, a new normal began to unfold within our household. The stale air, thick with unspoken words, transformed, settling into a warm glow filled with unimaginable warmth and connection. I could hardly believe how much had changed in such a short time. Each member of my family seemed to have shed a layer of emotional armor, revealing their true selves, and as a result, the painful ribbons of isolation that had long shackled us began to unravel, replaced by threads of understanding and support that shimmered in the flickering light of our kitchen. The ghosts that had once threatened to haunt our family, whispering reminders of painful memories and awkward silences, were now ignited with life. It was all very surreal to feel. The once muted colors of our conversations grew vivid and rich, laughter echoed like musical notes dancing, filling the corners of our home with a symphony of camaraderie and joy. I could finally sense the love that I had thought was lost forever, simmering just beneath the surface, waiting for the right moment to be released. One cold Saturday afternoon, as the wind howled outside, my siblings and I decided to breathe life back into an old family tradition, game night. It felt like retrieving an old photograph, dusty and forgotten, suddenly vibrant again. We crowded around the dining table, establishing a haphazard arrangement of board games, some popular ones and a few quirky finds that had long been neglected. The room was filled with the delicious, buttery scent of popcorn wafting from the microwave as we prepared our snacks. The cracking of kernels mixed delightfully with our chatter, creating a vibrant backdrop to our gathering that felt electric. Okay, what do we have here? Jake asked, sifting through the game boxes as though he were a pirate searching for buried treasure. His eyes lit up when he pulled out an old favorite, the box flaked with time. How about this one? He called with uncontainable enthusiasm, holding it aloft like a trophy. I remember when Mia lost that one time, it was hilarious. Ha, I was never going to win, you guys teamed up against me, I laughed, suddenly flooded with the nostalgia of those now distant evenings. It was warm and fuzzy, those memories had been colored with loneliness, but now they felt more like stepping stones leading toward healing. Cheating is a serious crime in this house, teased Jake, shooting a sidelong glance at Lily, who was standing close, her arms crossed. We cannot let that kind of behavior go unpunished. Lily rolled her eyes dramatically, unable to resist a grin. Okay, okay, I'll repent. Maybe I should wear a sign saying I will not cheat next time. Her laughter spilled out, brightening the atmosphere even more. I caught Alyssa's eye across the table, our unspoken understanding passed between us like a thread binding our hearts tighter. In that shared look, memories reflected back, tinted with gratitude for the night we were weaving together. It felt like a warm embrace, even from a distance. As we settled into our seats, our game night truly began to flourish. Popcorn flew, voices mingled and rose, sometimes turning into friendly banter. The lighthearted teasing continued. No pressure, Mia, but if you don't do better this round, I might not share the popcorn, Jake joked, stuffing a handful into his mouth as he grinned at me. I couldn't help but chuckle at his goofy, conspiratorial attitude. With each turn, each laugh, and each roguishly competitive jab, the warmth of love cocooned us. Suddenly, I wasn't just the invisible sister anymore. I was Mia, their sibling, their beloved daughter, part of the playful fray. Every joke was a step forward, building our bond anew brick by brick. I could feel my heart swell with a gratefulness I almost struggled to articulate. Something special happened as we reached the end of a game and the conversations began to flow like a river. It was almost as if those raw edges of our past were mighty stones, smoothed over by the unyielding current of our new connection. I gently shifted my focus and spoke about my vulnerabilities. You know, I've always grappled with feeling left out. It was like living in a shadow while you guys were together, sharing everything. I began, finding my voice. Jake paused, leaning forward. I had no idea, Mia, we never wanted you to feel that way. The sincerity in his tone struck a chord deep within me, and I could see traces of guilt flickering across his face. Alyssa, always the rock of our family, gave me a reassuring nod. I think we all just got caught up in our own stuff. I regret not checking in more often, you know? The honesty of the moment settled heavy but sweet between us. There were so many evenings where I longed just to be included, to share the simple things. I wanted to be part of your lives, my lives, but I felt that every time I reached out, I was pushing against a wall. The words tumbled out of me, washing over the fears I had carried alone for so long. Even as vulnerability filled the air, it was refreshing to see my siblings really listen, absorb, and react. That's so relatable, Jake said, his voice softening. I think we all have moments, insecurities that keep us from each other. Lily added, yeah, I mean, I might seem all confident, but I've had my own struggles too. I always worried whether I was living up to what everyone expected of me. Her confession tumbled out, punctuating the atmosphere with honesty. As the evening stretched on into the obscuring shadows of the night, small pieces of our past unfolded, moments of laughter, joy, pain, revisited with aching tenderness. Stories poured out like long-buried treasures. My heart felt light as I saw my siblings sharing their paths, revealing their hearts to me. Here we were stripped of pretense, just a set of vulnerable souls seeking refuge in each other's company. The games shifted to sharing letters we had written, little pieces of our lives folded neatly into those pages. It felt like pulling apart pages of a shared diary that had been hidden under the beds for years, stitching the gaps that had once felt so vast. I wrote a letter to you both, I said, holding a piece of paper in my shaking hands. My heart raced as I opened it, memories of lonely nights where I had vented my frustrations and fears flooding back. It was a time I could not bear to be alone anymore. I had written about wishing you could see me for who I am rather than the shadowy figure you saw. I needed you as my pillar of strength. Tears glistened in Alyssa's eyes as she leaned over, grasping my hand. Mia, I'm so sorry it took us this long to see. I can't imagine how hard it was to reach out and feel like no one understood. Jake wrapped his arms around both of us, creating an anchor. We promise that will never happen again. Our bond is worth protecting. The night wore on, layers of healing built up brick by brick, our once stifling home now echoed with laughter and kindness. We exchanged stories not just of who we had become during our time apart, but also who we aspired to be. Okay, let us make this a tradition, I said, brimming with excitement. I can't remember the last time we all felt this alive together. Agreed, Lily interjected, the energy of the room infectious. Game nights can't fade again. We should set a specific day each month. This has been amazing. As the evening wound down, we embraced a tight knot of love that united us, no longer just siblings but three souls bound through shared experience and healing. My tears were not born of sadness but gratitude, drenching my cheeks as I realized my revenge had not been rooted in malice but rather in the desire for connection. I had forced them to confront what they had neglected. Through embracing both pain and truth, we stood resilient together, ready to face whatever came next. In those emotive moments, I felt a twist of fate linger in the air. Through pain, we had achieved understanding, and I knew I would always hold that night close to my heart, forever imbued with the sweet sensation of once again feeling truly seen.